We're going to skip the intro.
Okay.
Hey, Monique. I'm not sure what Monique that is, but whatever Monique it is, hello. And if you want to identify yourself, you can. It's probably one of your followers. It could be my friend from Adelaide. Oh, we are live on Facebook. We're going to skip the intro, but just take a minute to make sure it's on. Let's see who it is. This Monique follows both you guys. I like her response. Thank you, Monique. Okay, let's see here. Let me just go on and make sure it's okay so I can get the comments up. And here we go. Dr. Joe is in the house. Dr. Joe.
Good day, my boy.
We have an old comeback on when somebody calls you a boy in Texas.
Oh, really?
Did you say Elroy or Leroy? Because I know you didn't say boy.
Yeah, Leroy seems to fit the bill. I don't know whether that's significant.
Could be. Let's see here.
There's all sorts of funny things going on my screen here.
Is there really?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was going through, getting set up. We got 34 people in the house. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. If these shows resonate, please share so we can stay above these algorithms, which we're kind of holding steady right now. But we got a whole bunch of shows coming up. We've got I've got them all put into the Zoom website, and I think we've got 17 in the next 5 days, something like that. Anyway, this is the first one, and we got Dr. Joe here. We're going to get a State of the Union. Let's see here. And
there's no union going on over here, mate.
No union. I want to say hi to Sandra and Alan. Look forward to sitting down with y'all again soon. I see that you're on here. If you guys haven't caught, oh my God, what is the name of it? Truth Frequency Network, I think. Divine Love. Sandra and Alan. Look up Sandra Allen on Facebook, and then you can find the links from there. They've had a radio program they've been doing for years and years, and doing a lot of good work. So anyway, all right, let's get started. I saw that incredible bit of advertising that you did for the show, and got quite a few giggles out of it. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the hot potato, and you can start it. And by the way, I'm going to be on Dr. Joe's show Saturday. I think that would be around 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. London. I think that's the time.
That was supposed to be a surprise.
Oh, it was.
Yeah. You know when I said, like, I'm going to introduce a surprise guest, right? Oh, God. Never mind. I'll pick somebody. No, it's all right.
Don't tell anybody else. See, that's that's what Morgan has to deal with. That type of what do you call that? You know,
what do we call that? Yeah, rascalitis. It's called. Oh, it doesn't matter, mate, because I think
dumb shititis.
Yeah, I think the 29th of February, you know, the leap day. I think it's going to be very, very, very significant.
I think so. Obviously, from the way it's been set up, Sandra and Alan's website is tfrlive.com. Twin Flame Divine Fire is the name of the radio show. Anyway, I just want to put that in there. But anyway, yeah. So I'm not going to be cursing anymore. I've been.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm getting, and then it's not like a bad thing. It's just not part of the frequency that I'm carrying forward. I don't know why that's coming in, but it is. So, what were we saying? Oh yeah. So, okay. You want to start this? You want to, I was watching, we were, sometimes we process by watching shows, right? So we watched, Outlander 2 days ago. We watched the first episode, which had been out since the previous Sunday. And then they said the next episode came out on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, but I checked it at 12:30 in the morning after we watched a movie, and it was on episode 2, season 5. But last night we were watching a thing called The Tudors on Netflix, which is about
Oh yeah, yeah.
the British royal family or whatever, all that stuff. And anyway, they had these sequences of jousting. So we're gonna have a joust.
Okay. We'll just have a joust. Good idea. Now listen, Todd, I'm going to ask you a favor. Please don't tell me what happens in Outland. Because we're going to watch that at the weekend. Right.
Okay, I'm not gonna tell you. It's
Okay.
good though, man. It's really good. It's getting good.
So yeah, the 29th, mate, it's there's some astronomical, astrological events occurring.
Is it really?
Yeah, yeah. And it's something to do with all sorts of this retrograde. Oh, no, that's a different thing. This retrograde thing, And, as what's going on out there in the universe comes down and sort of impacts upon our universe, And I got the message there'll be some powerful solar winds coming from Uranus. I don't know what you feel about.
Well, while Morgan was in Kansas City, I don't cook as much as I used to, but I used to be a really, really good cook, and the things that I could make, which most of them I don't eat, so I don't make them anymore. But I made some fantastic beans. They were so good. And thank God I ate them before she got back.
Yeah. Yes, those refried beans. They appeal to me. I saw the film years and years ago. It was called Blazing Saddles. I don't know,
Yeah.
And
I think those
that's
were
all I remembered about cowboys and Texans, really. You just sit around campfires, trying to get the flames going in some sort of mechanical sort of way,
Beer, beans, and barbecue around a campfire.
Well, it's spirituality, isn't it? Because spirit in Hebrew is pneuma, and pneuma means wind, isn't it? So it's all connected in some sort of way.
Yes, it is. And, and it's a form of communication when more than one person.
And it's handy if you get a flat tire as well, isn't it? Todd, do you want me to be serious? Because I can't. It's just impossible for me.
Well, you put some subjects up. I don't know in the ad whatever you want to talk about. Yeah, let's go.
I put some subjects. Oh yeah, okay. The bloodthirstiness of the feminine, because that fight that's just gone on, it was subscribed to by millions upon millions of people across the planet, and it's really, to me, it just sort of typifies the collective consciousness for bloodlust, And I didn't watch it. I don't sort of do this, but I've always had this thing about I've been horrified by violence in that way. And having said that, I spent many, many years training in martial arts, but it was never to become a good fighter. It was always to protect myself because I always felt afraid. But Todd, when I drank, right, something came out of me, right, like a beast and a monster. I used to play a lot of rugby, and they used to ply me with drink before the game. Right, and I'd get to a certain point, and when I was on the rugby pitch, you just flip the ball to me, and I'd just go through everybody, like a demon, So I have this two mixed sides of this, where in drink I could be ferocious, and without drink I could be absolutely terrified of violence and all that physical stuff as well, But also I've been involved in the latter days or the later days of my drinking. Right, I got into myself, some of the sort of deepest and darkest places where it was filled with violence, it was filled with guns and knives and prostitution, and there's no judgment here. I'm just explaining where my journey.
That's where you were.
That's before. Where I was, mate. Yeah, I'm not there now, and I'm not sort of reiterating the story for any sort of effect. I'm just sort of saying that that's where my experience took me, and I was afraid all the time. And I was a big fella, 6 foot tall, and I was quite stocky and stuff like that,
So you were afraid in those environments? The environments.
Mate. I was terrified all the time, and the only way I could hide it was to drink as much as I could. And the drink put me there, and the drink kept me there, And there wasn't just drink; there was all sorts of other substances going on,
Yeah. I'm totally That's why I asked you, because no, I totally get what you're saying, and I've been there. And the reason I asked you when I was in that environment, I was toasted all the time, and there were many things involved. But I never was scared. I was actually almost had like a death wish, you know. But that was early part of awakening. You know, the nights were spent like that. The days were spent, you know, connected. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Keep going.
Yeah, no, I was afraid, mate. There was, funnily enough, when I got to a certain amount of drink, then I didn't feel afraid. And then I'd start to pick on the people closest to me then, you know. And what they used to do is the ones who were the sort of supervisors, if you like, used to shuffle me in the corner and sit me down in the corner because they know had anybody picked on me, I would have been marmalized, if you like, you know. And it's
Yeah.
only looking back that I'm starting to see all this then. But as I say, it was a very deep and dark environment, you know. I'm
Yeah.
definitely not in that place now. But
Yeah.
there's a
Me
sort of
either.
another side as well, which is there's another side I got into in my academic career, which is highly refined and highly pretentious, you know. And what I'm trying to say is that other side was deeply, deeply authentic. It was
Mm.
filled with bloodlust. The women used to egg the men on when there were any fights, you know. That's what I'm trying to say, you know. The women used to egg them on, and they had this seeming sort of bloodthirstiness, you know, like a Lilith-like sort of impetus to see the gladiators and stuff like this. You know, this has all been coming to me recently about the experiences I had when I was really really ill. You know, and I look back and I can
So
see clearly. I can see clearly now why it's happened to me. Um, to really share my experience, my strength, and my hope with others. To say it is possible to come out of those environments and build a reasonably decent life for yourself. You know.
yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask you before I comment on that. So what were you afraid of exactly?
I was afraid of violence, mate. I was afraid
Afraid of
of physical.
violence.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was
Yeah.
afraid of being physically hurt. You know, it's
Uh,
my life's been very, very peculiar because at some stages I couldn't stand anybody calling me names, and I
yeah.
preferred them to kick the shit out of me, to be honest with you. You know, and in the later days of my drinking, you know, I was known as the local drunk, really, and the gangs of youths, you know, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, they just used to kick shit out of me when I was drunk, you know,
Is
and
that
they
right?
broke me ribs. They broke me ribs and they broke me nose, you know, and I used to
Man, you
wake
went
up the
deep.
next.
I didn't
Yeah, yeah,
realize you went that deep. I would say you went as deep as I did, just different, different a little bit different on the surface, but it
yeah,
is what it is that and that's what I was going to say. So what you're saying is that you had a very much physical experience of an energetic that you were carrying, and I did too, right? And you're
yeah,
saying that you, part of what you understand that you're to get out there is that you can come out of that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely, and it is about energy. Everything's become about energy for me now. Everything, you know, and the different forms. And this is what we can talk about on Saturday. Hopefully, is it's a quantum leap day to me. That's why I've called it quantum leap, and really about the energetics of what it is to be fully human. You know,
yeah,
and I think that we start off in that really deep physical thing, and unless we get grounded to start with, but always emotionally insecure, you know, and that's what I did, you know. My brother Brendan, he was different. He was grounded, fully grounded. He's bigger than me. He could always stand up and look after himself, you know. And for many many years, when we used to go and play out, he would be my minder, you know, and I'd
yeah.
always run to him to protect me, you know.
Older
And
brother?
pardon.
Was he an older brother?
No, no, I'm the eldest.
You're the
Yeah,
older
but
one.
yeah,
He,
but
yeah.
I was born 6 weeks premature. I was born with congenital hip dysplasia and scoliosis of the spine and all these things.
Mm,
So my mum, God bless her, you know, she
yeah.
sort of over mothered me. I don't know why we're talking like this tonight, but I'm just coming to just let it go, you know.
Mm-hmm.
She over mothered me,
Mm-hmm.
and I became a bit of a sort of a head worker and a bookworm, really, you know. And when Brendan was born, he's 14 months older than me, right? He was physically in good shape, you know, pretty
Mm-hmm.
normal and stuff like that. And so he was much more athletic. And so
Mm-hmm.
I would look to him for protection, but I'd always loathe him as well because, you know, that
Yeah.
sibling rivalry because I
Yeah.
wanted to be able to do what he could, you know,
Yeah.
and there was always that going on, you know, and stuff like that. So I'm
Yeah.
starting to see how deep these family connections go and the sort of bonds that have to be broken in order to sort of jettison what's the word I'm looking for? The ties, really. So to become
Yeah.
free.
Yeah. The loops. Yeah. And I had, see, I asked you that because I have an older brother. He's about almost 3 years older than me. And I was a lot bigger than he was, you know. But he was, you know, he didn't have a problem, you know, like it wasn't the same scenario. Like I wasn't like protecting him. It wasn't like that.
Yeah,
It was more of a, but he was the keeper. You know what I mean? He was, you know, like Morgan says, your father is Father God, your mother's Mother Universe as a baby. But my brother played like a really big, the biggest impression besides my parents, and it could even be bigger. I don't know, but there was a lot of stuff there. Um, yeah, so I kind of relate to that. Yeah. So you're talking about coming out of that personal hell that is takes on a huge, loud physical, you know, manifestation, which I can relate to. And yeah, and so then, and you know what, listening to people on these shows, a lot of them had the same journey. It may not have been the path that we went down the back alley in the red district, but they still had the same level of, you know, self-deprecation, self-deprecating behavior, self-sabotage, you know, and all that stuff that we're also familiar with so many stories that people have told. But then, like with you, like with me, at some point there's an override from the multidimensionality and we start connecting, right? You know, we
yeah,
start connecting with it, and like in my case, you know, I was kind of doing both. But I've watched a lot of people, and they go into that space, and I'm sure I've done it too, and kind of start to over identify with the multidimensional aspects and their connection with the universe as it's being like so unique. And I, like, you know, it almost creates it does create a superiority complex, you know, an unconscious superiority complex. I've watched a lot of people detach from that over the last of this year. I've watched a lot of people transform that have been pulling stuff down for a long time and start to get more human.
yeah,
And that's what I kind of like about what you said is, you said, you know, something about uh you know, getting to the human level, you know, and I think that's the whole object of this experience. Go ahead.
no, I agree, mate, and I think I was that. I was dissociated from the world because I was afraid. I lived in Fantasy Island for a long, long time. I had what my mum called an overactive imagination. I was always anxious, always worried, you know, and spent most of my time reading and tried to develop my cognitive capacity, which I did
Yeah.
to a large degree, you know, and tried to use that in defense. And you can see that from a physical point of view, talking and knowing all this stuff doesn't offer any defense whatsoever, you know.
Hmm.
And the another thing is, I also, these are the things that have come into me very, very rapidly recently, is I was very dyspraxic, you know, I was a clumsy child, you know, and I've still got that today, you know, that I've got very,
Like
very
you
sensitive.
tell you accidentally tell secrets.
Yeah, no, I've got. Do you know what, Todd? I don't think I've got any secrets left. I've just opened myself up, and I don't care what anybody finds out about me because I
Yeah.
feel free from all that. I'm just
Yeah.
like, you know, if you want to know something and I feel it would be beneficial to you, I'll discuss it at depth with
Yeah.
you, no problem at all. You know.
No, I was referring to the surprise guest you have on your show on
Oh,
Saturday.
I see. Oh, I see. Okay, okay. You'll
So,
have to wear a dress or something like that
uh,
because I've already set
yeah,
the advertising page up for it. You'll like it anyway when you see
I'm ready, man. Let's do it.
it.
So, okay, so I remember because you always, well, you know, I think a lot of us did too, but I mean, like, you know, you kind of had stepped into the multidimensionality, the stuff outside of this realm or experience as a youngster, and then, you know, kind of went through a lot of the things that other people did, which is you kind of went into the matrix, and, you know, then had this other wake up, you know, circa to 2012 or whatever. Did you have to? Did you? Did you have to kind of detach from over identifying with the connections that you had with the multiverses? I mean, did you have to go through that step, or was that a problem for you? You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
it's yeah. I think that's why I drank. That's why I
Mm,
drank, because I couldn't get grounded. That was the whole thing. And
mm.
I would justify being different. I mean, people have likened me, quite a few, to House. There's a program called House. I don't know if you've ever watched it, you know, where he's a very, very sarcastic, arrogant prick. Oh, excuse my French. Where he's a very, very sarcastic, arrogant person. And they
I don't care
likened
if
me
you
to,
curse. You can go ahead and
okay,
curse.
but
I'm
they
not.
likened me to him. I have one friend who said, "You've got your house head on again," and I have that in me. And, you know, I use that arrogance, I use the intellectuality to
Yeah,
basically put
yeah,
people down with my mouth.
yeah,
But on some people, it wouldn't work because I tried to put them down and they just smash me in the nose.
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
so, so all,
Educated. Yeah,
yeah,
educated derelict. That's what I call
yeah,
them.
but
Educate.
but this is this fighting thing. I understand. I know a lot of professional fighters and mixed martial arts and
Mm,
professional boxers. I work with them. I sort of train them in various relaxation techniques and stretching techniques and stuff. So I know a lot of them. They are brought up in a very, very, very disciplined way, and I
mm.
love their discipline. But it's almost like the gladiators and the crowds. When I watch the crowds watching them,
Oh
right?
my God,
Something
that's
something in me is horrified.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
trying
yeah.
to be a saint here. I'm just explaining the feelings
No,
that I have.
yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Now I just want to go back a minute. So you started out talking about I forget the adjective you used, but the feminine, the something feminine, and then you started talking
Yeah,
about
bloodthirsty.
the bloodthirst. Okay, so look, I want to just keep that in context because I think it's connected to what you're saying, which is what you're talking about. It's like this MMA craze
Yeah,
is kind of weird, man, because it's like, it's like I don't see anything and I don't know, am I judging or whatever my opinion, but like I can't even watch it. It's like and it's not even the two dudes or the two chicks that are engaging, it's the crowd. I
yeah,
think of back in the 70s, the 60s and 70s, when I was a kid watching TV and at night they would have that fake wrestling in
yeah.
America, right? And a lot of it was in the Texas area and there were absolute fanatics about it, and there would be fights and chairs being thrown emulating the wrestlers. Like, what is that, So is this along the same lines of what you're talking about with the bloodthirsty? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what I think it is, I think that you are attracted to where your level of your soul is
Mm.
mostly engaged, right? And I
Is it
think that this is
is that
root chakra stuff. This,
okay? Is that okay? This is big. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Is it is that okay, it could be both, but is that the frequency that you're attracting, or is it a distraction? Because distraction has really come up in the last few weeks for Morgan and I. And I know it's collective. And we got that really powerful transmission, which I talked about, which had to do, they used the word addiction, but there wasn't addiction just with the alcohol, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was addiction with being on your phone, and distracting yourself. It was really another word or a deeper word for distraction. So is it that they're in a frequency that they're comfortable with that's a distraction, just a bigger, because you could be, having a fight in the backyard with a couple of kids, and it's the same kind of energy field as being present at an MMA fight, but so is it a distraction, or is it both? Are you in the frequency that you match?
where what I feel is that as the soul globally, as the soul's energy ramps up, the soul works by attraction, not promotion. So
Mm,
basically, we attract to ourselves, this is just my view, could be wrong, but we
yeah,
attract to ourselves what we need to learn next to
yeah,
progress in its soul's evolution. So we're drawing to us these scenarios, the people, the players, the scenes. Now, how do you know whether it's right for you or wrong for you? By the way that you feel. Because if you feel tense and uncomfortable, right, then that's a time to step back,
mm,
to go into emotionally, mindfully calm place, and then ask your heart, what is it you're trying to show me here?
yeah,
You know, and I
yeah,
think, Todd, all shadow works through feelings and not thoughts.
yeah,
So it's if you're not in touch with your body consciousness, then you'll miss this all the time. And I think that's when the head can get taken away, and
Yeah.
it gives you that big adrenaline rush. And how do you know you've been working on adrenaline? Because when you wake up the next day, you feel like shit, as though you've drank 2 bottles of whiskey, because it's all toxic chemicals that are pouring into your body all the time. So this is, to me, is about discernment, discrimination, but more about body awareness, because I think that
Mm.
the body is so anciently wise that we need, there's all that need stuff. My feeling is that I need to pay more and more and more attention to the subtle cues that it's sending me to say, Joe, this is what this is associated with now.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes in the form of human interaction, where people directly or indirectly, or consciously or unconsciously, kind of call you out. I don't mean call you out like big time. I just mean like, a spade is a spade. Like I might make a comment, and from that, or you say, I'll use me. So you might make a comment to me like, well, you do this, you know,
Yeah.
uh, and I might have some kind of loop running in my head where I get defensive real quick about it. What I've noticed, and to your point about the body, and I think for me, the body's been speaking since about summer of last year. I
Yeah.
really started to notice, or maybe even earlier last year, I started to notice the body was actually talking. And so when somebody, like, for instance, like with Morgan might say something to me, and in the past I might like come right back, like she says something, and 2 seconds later I've already got my response. That's one of the things I noticed. Like we just kind of did a little exercise just a while ago before the show, and as the energy of the question or whatever was put before me, I noticed I don't like come out right away anymore and say, blah, 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 blah. I kind of go, okay, well, what does that feel like? Like, in other words, I can't explain it, but it's like, how do I feel about that? You know,
No, I'm sorry, mate.
no, no, I was just going to say, like, like, what we're using these cards, and so anxiety came up. If this was, like, say a year ago, I would have went, I'm not, I don't have any anxiety,
Yeah.
you know, but I looked at it and I said, okay, wait a minute. I don't have anything that looks like anxiety in, the old way, but I got to admit to myself, there's a little bit of anxiety going on here. It's not like it used to be. Like I wouldn't have seen it before. Like there was a bunch of anxiety stacked on top of it that I was dealing with. But like, so it was just in my body was what's telling me that, or what's actually speaking that, you know.
Well, I think that that's what I lecture on a lot, is
Mm.
it's the difference between emotional reactivity and proactivity. There's a completely different, so if you're always emotionally reacting and on the defensive, then you're not
Mm.
aware, are you? These are
Mm.
what you would call loops or programs and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
as you become more and more and more, and you sink deeper and deeper and deeper into your body sensations, I think that's the difference between sense and sensibility. That as you go different, it becomes much more subtle. So the energy body has different layers, right? And I think what's actually happening now is we've overcome. I mean, now when anger's building, you can feel that and dismiss
Mm.
it straight away. But then we get into the next level of resentment. And then when
Mm.
you can see resentment, then it goes even further into
Mm.
frustration. And, because I feel that we've got to be free of all those defensive, emotional, unconscious programs that have been and then the next thing is, when you've basically dealt with your personal stuff, then you've got to deal with your mother and fathers, your grandfathers, your grandfather, And
Mm.
so to me, this is where we're going. And I know
Yeah.
that a lot of the reactions I had in drink were not mine, Todd. They weren't
Yeah.
mine. They were Irish, Catholic, Celtic, cultural
Yeah.
responses, right? And so you
Yeah.
see, this is the whole thing is when you realize that you're not your mind as such, your defensive mind, that you're something that observes that, right?
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
stop engaging with it. That to me is true peace of mind. I'm not there yet, mate, but
Mm.
I'm much, much better than I ever was. I'm able, right, to step right back and watch from the back row rather than be right up in the front
Yeah.
seat of the fight, jumping in, wanting to say to the referee, hey, and all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff.
I think that the quick responses are a, physical representation of the energy of, because I think all of us, when we, the old saying about, don't, when you have a conversation, listen. So, and you can tell by when somebody's talking to you, are you thinking about what you're going to say already? Are you actually listening? But I think we've become more conscious of it. I think that's one thing that's definitely happened is we become more conscious of the things that we weren't aware of that are the underlying stuff because there was all that stuff stacked on it. And I agree with what you're saying too. Like I remember 8, 9 years ago reading when I first woke up, reading one of the few books I read was The Afterlife of Billy Fingers, which was written by I believe she's a psychologist, Anne Cahan, and her brother died, and he started talking to her, and she wrote a book about it. And one of the things he said was, from his vantage point that he was given, and that he was relaying to her, he said, if everybody, and this is an energetic statement more than it's literal, but if everybody could take a look at all the energies around them, okay, which to me is the ancestral patterns and all da 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 da, they would like really go easy on themselves and go, oh, well, it's not even me. Now, this was 8 or 9 years ago, and I think that obviously we've evolved to a much greater space of awareness, but still, it holds true. And like what you're talking about, maybe it's the residual or just the last, threads of the stuff that we're cleaning out, because people have talked about that in the last few weeks. They've talked about they're really scraping stuff out. And even high vibrational people that have been out there for a long time, like leaders and stuff. I mean, I've seen them saying, "Hey, I'm knee deep in the mud," but not in a bad way. Just
Yeah.
saying, "This is where I'm at." Yeah.
Most of the time, I'm calm on the inside. I'm calm. I'm watching stuff going on. But when I get tired, and when I get hungry, it's the normal stuff. The instinct for self-protection kicks in more. It becomes more attentive to the situation, and then I become more reactive. Then, and I can feel that,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
become very important to me to
Yeah.
keep my left ear on my body, listening into what's going on. And I teach this thing called heart rate variability biofeedback. And what that basically is it's when you get the yin and the yang, or the two sides of your nervous system that regulate your heart. When you get those working in coherence, then you can hit that still point. And it's in that still point that you get the observer comes in and gives
Yeah.
clear. So what I'm trying to say is I think that there are simple, practical steps you can take. First of all, to become more body aware, and then to become aware of when the body's out of sync or incoherent. And then, rather than go forward into the fight, because I heard you say this last night, I heard you to say, what's the point in fighting anymore? But I listen to Boggy a lot because I do a thing with Boggy every month,
Mm-hmm.
and Boggy's he jokes a lot, but he's a very, very deeply wise man,
Yeah.
and basically he lives by the Tao, and so do I, more or less, because if you haven't got your first chakra balanced, then you're always insecure one way or the other, and you
You're talking
skip
about the
it.
root,
The
the root
root
chakra.
chakra, yeah.
Yeah.
So the root chakra is associated with the adrenal glands. That's
Mm-hmm.
where adrenaline, or epinephrine as it's called, that's where that's produced. That's one powerful hormone there, and that's
Yeah.
there for your defense.
Yeah.
So the point is, if you grow up insecure and you're not fully grounded and have your feet both firmly planted on the ground in the formative years of your life, then you'll always be energetically disconnected and therefore emotionally emotionally immature, if you like, or sensitive. So a lot of people, they go to the doctors and they say they've got this vertigo or are afraid of heights. When they go to the doctor will give them a tablet, some sort of tablet to try and dull or numb their feelings. If you go to an energy practitioner, they'll get you to do grounding exercises like in martial arts, because really it's to try and help you to reconnect with Mother Earth, where the true source of grounding is. I don't know whether that makes sense, but
Mm-hmm.
the old martial arts, Todd, to get a black belt in the old style martial arts, you have to basically sit in a horse stance, which is really difficult, for a half an hour without budging.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
that would mean then that you were totally and utterly energetically connected to the ground.
Yeah. There's yeah, and yeah, I just want to say something on that too. So like, so these, you get in this state, and Richie's got a great comment here that kind of speaks to it. See, so far, we can't articulate what's happening because we have already done it, and words are not needed. So all we are doing is confusing our liberation now. So it's like, and he says grounding is imperative. So that's what I was getting at. It's like there is something different happening now, and I know it's not just me. And it's like going for a quick walk or sitting outside. There's no words or anything. You're just kind of like sitting there, and I guess you can call that grounding or whatever you want to call it, but it's a nonverbal thing. There's no explanation, and I think what I'm getting from what he's saying is, look, we've done this over and over and over and over again, and every time we do it, we're expanding further. The spiral is spiraling further out, right?
Yeah.
And so we're in this thick, dense realm, in this dense physical experience where the word, you know, uh, logos, the word is a big part of it. And so it's not like part of the illusion, it's actually part of the integration, which therefore is is part of the catalyst for the expansion. So I think part of what we're kind of going through this year so far is we don't have to understand. It's like nonverbal, it's like it's telepathic, it's intuitive, and we're getting used to that a little bit. you know I don't, and I just want to say this too and go back to you, but one of the reasons I say that too is because I don't see people kicking their own ass to the level that they were before, because they're realizing, I forgive myself, I forgive myself, I forgive myself, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, I didn't even do anything wrong, you know right?
Yeah.
We're a lot of well, I don't say the really what we're doing, micro, macro, whatever you want to call it, we're clearing. This is a universal correction. We talk about ancestral lineage. We're carrying all that stuff with us, and we're clearing it. We're aligning the DNA. So we're not just, this isn't just a personal inside job. This is actually, and that feels very palpable this first few weeks of the year, that, things will come in and I'll be like, man, I think this is collective. Not that it doesn't include me, not that I don't have something to do for myself, but wow, I mean, it's just like, it's massive, and you can feel the shift.
I think the root chakra, as Sahara was saying here, the root chakra is also associated with the mother, the part of Gaia, and it's also to do with communication. What I saw this morning was, we've gone from communicating by word of mouth, and we've gone from communicating by snail mail, and then we moved to sort of wire, and then we moved to wireless, and I see what's actually happening as we're expanding. Right, the need for all this stuff is disappearing now, and so this
Yeah.
non-verbal stuff that's coming in much more closely. Telepathy. I don't know whether well, I know that you've had this, but my ability to pick up on thoughts has expanded exponentially
Yes.
over the last few months. It really has.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
even Todd, with animals as well, and I love
Yes.
animals. But I
Yes.
we have a cat here who's Christine, our pumpkin. But it's almost like, and I'm not messing. I'm not messing. It's almost like I can have a full conversation with her, just
Yeah.
by tuning into her thinking and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And she's
No,
almost
that's
like
yeah.
verbally talking to me a lot now as well.
Well, that's what Christina is saying right here. She says, I can get dogs and cats to move without using my mouth. All and yeah, and I agree, especially this year. Franco talks about in his forecast that he'd been on since about a year with us, and he said that the inverted matrix projection ended like December 16th. And so we really went into this new phase. I think part of that, like what you're talking about, I really feel that over these few weeks of the year. The telepathy, reading, it's not even reading people. It's just like you see it. You can look at their picture or look at their message, and they might say one thing and you get what it is, and it's not ego. It's just reality. Like, what do you do with that? Like I've been struggling a little bit. I kind of went prior to that. I was like, prior to the first of this year, I'm like, somebody, says this or does that, I'm not going to say anything. you know I'm not going to block them, I'm just not going to say anything, whatever the case is, or people go out, whatever. But then I get to the point just a couple of weeks ago, like, what do you do with this information? Like, you see it for what it is, you see it for what it is. If I answer, the relationship is going nowhere. Whatever level of relationship it is, it's going nowhere, because I can either participate in this mirage, this shell game of what am I saying and what I'm saying, and or what you're saying, it doesn't matter, doesn't match what we're thinking or feeling, so what do that? Do I go to the person and say, hey, here's the deal. This happened, that happened, this happened. I'm not upset about it, but I'm not going to act like, there's not an elephant in the room. You know what I mean? Do we
Yeah.
say that? I think this is one of the things that we're coming to, like, what do we do? And at this point, I'm still doing nothing because I'm not certain about, yes, this is a mirror of myself. This is me that I'm looking at. I want them to treat me, I should treat them like I would treat myself. And there's a part of me that's saying, I want to be called out, but I'm still not brave enough to do it because I'm not confident that it's the right thing.
Well, that's very interesting because I mean that to me, I'm talking about what I found out about me was the gross people pleaser in me didn't
Mm-hmm.
speak up for myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was not because I was trying to spare their feelings. It was because I was trying to spare my feelings in case it upset them, you see. And that's really, really difficult. And I don't keep anything
Wow.
in now, Todd. If I smell something, when I was a child, I was very open, like
Mm-hmm.
most of us on this who are listening. And I was very, very open, and I used to sense things and pick things up. And people would come to our house, my mum and dad's house, and stuff like that. And I'd immediately get an energy feeling of, oh, I don't like that
Mm-hmm.
person. But my mum, be the parish priest or something like that, my mum would say, you can't say that about Father so and so. And then I would use this politically correct head then to start pretending that I liked somebody when in
Mm-hmm.
actually fact my soul was saying to me, be
Yeah.
careful of this.
Yeah.
And I'm back to that sort of free energetic state now, and I don't even try
Yeah.
and work it out. It's not a judgment, it's a discernment that's coming from the level of my soul. And Todd, how do I know? Who do I resonate with? I resonate with people where I feel that our energies are similar and our vibrations are the same, and that I can work with them. I don't have to grit my teeth and stay in an
Yeah.
uncomfortable situation,
Yeah.
But I always say to my soul, do I need to stay here? Is it something that I need to know about myself? And I just get, no, Joe, it's not time to work with that person yet. So come
Mm.
away from it, you see. And if I'm Todd, if the soul's big enough that if we do need to be working with somebody, a week later we'll bump into the buggers again, and then
Yeah,
we'll
of
get the
course.
message. So there's
Yeah.
nothing really to work out. Is that I 28 years ago, Todd, I handed the management of my life over to the care of my soul, which is my higher self or God or spirit. Right? I handed it over because the way I was working is the way I was managing my life took to me to to the point of killing myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I went through this rigmarole of saying, look, here you are, soul, right? You please manage every single component of my life here, now, and forevermore. I'm letting go completely. And since then, my life has changed
Yeah.
miraculously. The only
Yeah.
time it ever goes wrong is because I take it back when I get a smell of something difficult's coming up, you see. So that's where I'm up to, Todd. And when I don't know and I get the tug, I just go, here,
Yeah.
sort that out for me because I
Well, I
can't
think
get
you,
my head around this.
yeah, I think you said it right though. All right. So I think you said it right. Like, so if and when you're supposed to address the situation, it will be arranged. If, in other words, this is one thing I kind of was getting to, and now I've kind of locked it in and aligned it talking to you right now. So it's like, okay, actually Morgan mentioned it a couple of days ago. So it's the same thing. And it was, you don't need to go out of your way, Todd, to have this conversation with this person and detail out, hey, we cannot have this relationship or connection because there's some bullshit under the rug here, you know, that we haven't addressed, that we're acting like, and we all know that where that came from. We all came out of that stuff. But so I don't have to go out of my way. Uh, the opportunity will present itself if needed, you know, if needed. And I guess where I was kind of struggling or contemplating was taking this oneness to, okay, everyone I'm looking at is me. Anyone I have a problem with, I have a practice, and I'm sure many people do, bringing them into your heart. They're the same as me. I don't care who it is. And then the next level of that is, like you were talking about. Now I'm getting, I can look at them and know what's really happening. Like I know it's happening. The telepathy is there. And if I'm going to treat them as I treat myself, how far does that go? If I want to be called out, not to the extreme, but just like, if I'm not being, authentic or congruent or whatever the case is, uh, if Todd's the other person I'm looking at, I would want Todd to tell me that. But that puts it on me now. Here I am, the center of it all. Now, do I actually say anything? So I think to your point, you it will be presented to you if if it's supposed to be. Now, the other thing that you said that I've never thought about, and it's got something going on with it. You said you didn't say anything to people in the past, not because of their feelings, but because of your own feelings. I've never thought about that because
Yeah,
since I was a little kid, I was just like you, very sensitive, and especially with people. And so there was a lot of things I never said. And I thought it was because I didn't want to, upset them or their feelings. But I think maybe this is something to think about. I don't know why it's important, but I'm just mentioning it. But you made me think. I mean, so it was really actually my own feelings. That's pretty deep. Rejection, conflict, violence, all that stuff.
but the way I see that, Todd, is it's a projection or an expectation of what may happen in the future. Meaning that if I say this to this person, what will their reaction be? So it's not living in the moment, is it? This is the difficult part: is to stay in them. See, I know I kept lots of stuff down and I internalized it. And when you repress it, somebody said it's like being buried alive. It
Mm,
eats away at you, all the
suffocates.
time in your psyche, and you
Mm,
don't even know it's there. And then you push it down, and it takes it a hell of an amount of energy to keep it there so that you can push your head further up and pretend that everything's all right. All
yeah.
my life, I've been pretentious. And now I'm not saying to fire this stuff at anybody. My phrase is, if there's something playing on your mind, you've got to get it off your chest, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that's almost like breaking open the ribs and allowing the heart to come out and
Mm,
speak for
yeah.
itself. And what I say to people, Todd, is if something's really bothering me on the inside, I'm saying, look, there's something playing on my mind. Would you
Yeah.
mind if I get it off my chest? Todd, I don't know anybody who says no to that. Now,
Yeah.
here's the hard part: is when you honestly and openly speak from your heart and
That's a
soul,
good point.
if that other person gets upset by that, that's their lesson,
Okay.
right?
This
You
now
you
you've
you've
you've explained
Okay,
it. Yeah.
sorry.
Now I get it. It just clicked because I'm picturing, just for the sake of the example, a particular individual, and so I could see saying to somebody, I need to get something off my chest. Okay. So that's not really saying I'm right. It's not saying I'm wrong. It's just saying I need to share this with you. And really, I can feel that. That's like in the spirit of oneness, without getting melodramatic. I mean, this is not, this is just the truth coming out. And it's just, it's nothing about judgment or right or wrong. So that in that situation, I would not be concerned with their feelings. And that whole thing's taken away, or even my own feelings. I wouldn't be in fear of the energy that comes back at me. If, like you said, if the energy comes back at me, it's not being arrogant. It's just something that we experience together. That here's, and Morgan says this to me, and not so much anymore, because maybe I'm coming into alignment. But she'll say, may I tell you what my experience is, or what my experience was? Because obviously I don't have a clue, and this works with human interaction. So how am I going to know if I haven't been listening? I'm unconscious. Maybe they're unconscious. Maybe I'm unconscious. Maybe if I say, here's what I experienced, here's how I feel, I need to get this off my chest, maybe they're going to rebut, and I'm not in fear because I feel great now. And maybe I'm going to learn something. You know what I mean? Maybe they're going to convey some information to me that I didn't know.
Yeah, I
So
think in the end, sorry, mate, for butting in. I think in the end, this is part of the thing I went through, and we've talked about it before. I made a list of all persons that I've harmed, and I
yeah,
went and made direct amends to them wherever possible without
yeah,
doing harm, right? So I had to, this is almost like you've got to go through humiliation right? Before real humility comes in,
Hmm.
you know. And it's called, Todd, it's called growing up, isn't it? This is what ascension to me is. It's
That's
going
what
deeper into your.
that's Morgan's quote.
Oh, right.
That's
Okay. Well,
that that's
we're
it.
on
No,
the
I'm
same
serious.
wavelength
That
then.
she says it like, she'll say from time to time, and she said like 10, 12 years ago, talking to the higher self, or the
Yeah.
higher self talking to her. He's never used the word ascension. Always used the term of growing up.
Yeah.
So that I like that too, because that takes the emphasis off everybody else, right?
Of course, of
You
course.
know?
Because well, we say, don't we? We glibly say, "No, I'm 100% responsible for what's going on." But when we really, really understand that, it's by attraction, not promotion. This is what the secret's about. The secret was about, right? Understand that you're drawing to you consciously and unconsciously everything that you need to learn to grow up. And when I say
Yeah.
grow up, I really mean grow out, because someone's
Yeah.
mentioned it before. This is about expansion of
Yeah.
consciousness.
Yeah.
It's limitless potential
But
to expand.
there is a level of growing up though. There is a
No, no,
level
there
of
is.
taking on responsibility. And you're right, it is expansion. And that,
Yeah,
but it's like God, these subjects in this time and space in this first few weeks of the year are like a totally different conversation than they were a year ago. Like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. This is like fertile ground, like untrodden, an untrodden path. It's like, so it's so interesting. I was going to ask you uh, another thing which has come up, which is at a new level. I think the discussion, again, like everything else, is in a different atmosphere now, because we have cleared all that crap that's on top of these underlying things. And that's want and desire, right? So, you know, we've been talking about that, like the things that you want, and we've gotten transmissions of things that you want. You've got to let go of a wanting this. But there is a desire in my soul that I have had since I was born, and I'm sure everybody else has, you know, that and I know that's not the right word, okay? But it's not a want. It's a desire. It's a desire. And maybe that desire doesn't have specific things like that we break down once, like I want Soulogy to do this, or I want my relationship to do that, or but just the desire, the energy of expansion, of greater light, or whatever the case is. So I'm kind of dealing with that right now. You know what I mean? I got this information. I have it matches my desire. It came from my relationship with the universe, where my desire comes from. Uh, but I don't know what to do with it, because I can't totally differentiate want and desire. Does any of that help
well,
you,
I
or
understand that perfectly. I
okay?
know that we're on the same
Yeah.
mother wavelength. I've had that since I was born, and I can only feel it's a lust for life. It's a
Yeah.
lust for freedom, but it's associated with me. It's associated in the feminine aspects of my life, because I think it's the feminine that contains everything we need. It's the yin, it's the dark, it's that sort of place where it feels like there's nothing, but everything's in there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm talking like guru speaking now, but
No, 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 no. This is right. This is that you mentioned Lilith in the beginning, or we could talk about Kali, and I've talked about a couple of dimensional experiences I had recently, where you go into this, it's both an abyss and a womb. It's both, and it's such an unknown field that it's almost scary, but for some reason it's at the same time, it's nurturing, it's supporting, it's creation, it's the womb. Yeah. And what you said about the feminine, now this is something that I'm starting to gain access to or understand in terms of my own personal experience, in terms of Soulogy, and I'm watching the percentage of men in Soulogy YouTube and Soulogy groups uh, increasing, like since the first of the year, like since the solstice, right? Dramatically too. And so what I'm going, okay, so what is it that we need to give up? We've given up. Why isn't it flush? Why isn't it connected? Why isn't it that connection been fully made? And one of the things that I started to get today was to allow her, to allow the feminine frequency to go forward, to follow it. And maybe well, not maybe, but at some point there's an equality, but to actually allow that. How many, and we're mostly talking about the physical gender, but not necessarily, right? But the masculine person, let's put it that way, which is predominantly going to be the match the physical gender. If you really ask yourself, have I dropped everything? Have I let it all go? Have I detached from all the programming of being the masculine energy? And I will bet you, like for me, that, oh, wait a minute, I'm not allowing it. I'm doing all these things, but I'm really get down to the bottom of it, and I want to be part of this transformation. I want Soulogy to be part of this transformation. I need to set the example. I need to, because guess what? It's never been done before. Where has it been done? So as the masculine energy, let it go. You know what? This is me talking to me, but like actually walk the talk, Todd, like go all the way. You don't have to control, and I'm way past all that. Like a lot of us have gotten, but there's like a really intricate thin layer at the bottom, just like everything else that's happening with us as we're scraping it out in the first few weeks of this year, is to let her run with it, go, and I think that's a big thing. And I don't know why I started talking about that, but because, well, you mentioned the feminine thing, and you mentioned the bloodthirsty, but I know what you're saying. It's like, mama's home just doesn't mean, hey, everything's okay now.
See, I've had massive downloads this week on this particular subject, and I always get the Isis connection very strongly, and the Mary Magdalene connection, and the
Yeah.
Rose line. I know they're old; they can be old stories, but the streams of consciousness that I lock into. But I've also got Osiris there, and all week I've had Osiris. I put a thing up in the week: Osiris, Isis, and Horus. And
Yeah.
Todd, I woke up the other night at 3 o'clock, at about 3:33, all that stuff. I woke up, and hanging over my head was this golden hawk, right? It was, I didn't see it physically, but it was just, it seemed physical. It was this golden hawk pulsating right before my head, right? And to me, that's Horus, which represents the Christ, which represents self-mastery and all those sorts of things. So it was like an indication to me. But what I also get was that Osiris is taking a back seat now to allow the vagus nerve, and I get all this stuff, it all comes in once. And I think that they want me to try and put it together in a simple way and show people simple energy techniques to allow all this to come through. And to me, this is all about letting go, absolutely. But what do we need to let go? This is just me talking. What do we need to let go of? Trying to understand it before it's happened. As I say to people, you'll get the answer in 6 months' time, right?
Yeah.
You'll get the answer looking back. You don't need to do anything other than
Yeah.
surrender. And like this tractor beam, we will be magnetized or attracted through to the central point, which is actually another gate, another stargate, and you will be sucked through it. The other thing I get as well, and this could sound, it depends how you interpret this, but the masculine is blows and the feminine sucks. It's like incubus and succubus. I get all these different things, but it's almost like the male part is going into the dark. Do you see what I mean? It's almost like the spearhead, if you like, that's sort of worming its way or snaking its way into the unknown, and it's got to have complete trust that, see, there's a Taoist meditation that happens in complete blackness, and not many people can do it, where there's absolutely no light there whatsoever, and you have to sit in complete dark and in complete silence until you start to get this inner light coming through. And that's the opening of the pineal gland and the third eye and all this stuff. But I've had this myself, Todd. I've been in this complete darkness, and suddenly I saw a pinpoint of light. No shit, mate. A pinpoint of light, and it came through, and it whacked me a bit like Saul on the road to Damascus, and everything opened up, And I think that that's that cosmic consciousness that you get when Hieros Gamos comes. It's the internal masculine and feminine meeting temporarily or hopefully permanently, right, until you've got all this cosmic consciousness. I want to ask a question on the Hieros Gamos. Can you get that single-handedly? I'll let you think about that, Todd. But to go back to that mystical union.
What are you talking about?
No,
Can
you'll have to
can
replay this to understand what I'm getting. Go on.
Can you get this individually? Is that what you said?
Single-handedly, mate. There's a deep underlying thing there. Yeah, but don't worry.
Yeah, single-handed. Oh, I'm
Okay,
sorry. I'm a
that's all
little
right.
bit slow there. I'm a little bit
That
slow.
that's all right. But no, just to go back, what I'm
You
saying is,
mean like oh no, we don't want to.
no, don't even go there.
No,
Just
no, no, no.
that was good.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is, all week I've had this coming in. I've had Isis and Osiris, and Jesus and the Magdalene, and all that yin yang stuff has been coming to me. But
Yeah.
in the end, it's about, don't try and work it out, Joe. We've got this covered. Little Joe, just sit on the Big
Yeah.
Dipper and just go with it. And when you look back, you'll see what it was all about, basically.
Yeah, and I think too. Okay, so like if we go back to what we were talking about earlier, like when we were talking about human interactions and the telepathy, if we're getting more, they're getting more. And the telepathy is strongest with what we're actually connecting to within ourselves, like what are we really thinking, what are we really, you know what I mean, because we've ignored it and been distracted and all that. So if you look at that, what we talked about, like, okay, like you said, if and when it's meant to happen, it will. And then I said, well, I don't need to go seek that person out. Well, now the same thing goes with this. I get what you're saying with like the in hell is the feminine, you pull in all the energy, you incubate it in the womb, and now the masculine energy goes out and creates it, right? So we've been in this realm, this patriarchal realm, where everything is okay. We got a plan, we got to strategize, control, micromanage and all that. And so I think this is one of the first frontiers where we're actually going to be able to retain our gender, but walk into a new territory, a new frontier, where we're going to be able to examine where we might carry or where we carry a feminine energy if I'm a masculine, vice versa. You know what I mean? How it works, and actually talk about it without having to go, oh, well, the men do this and the women do that kind of thing. Yeah. Right. And what I'm getting at, it's the same thing. Okay. Because what I've observed, I'm getting clarification as I'm talking, in the community has been the masculine, the wounded masculine, or the patterned masculine that has to do all that stuff, right? I've seen it in women, okay, because there's a lot more women practitioners and stuff that have been out there than men, okay, and so you can see that, you can kind of see where they're holding on to it, right? It's no different than the final leg of the masculine energy, the he allowing her, or Osiris allowing Isis to run forward, because we're in an imbalanced state that was, we all know that the patriarch was lopsided, the masculine was the power, or given the power and all that. So I see it as the same frequency. It's the same frequency. You know what I mean? I mean, I actually see where, hey, if I'm meant to go talk to this person, and we're meant to have a heartfelt discussion, and I'm going to be given the opportunity, and I'll intuitively know to do it, it's going to present itself. Just as, say, in let's just say business, I don't need to go out there and force and create and drive and micromanage. It will present itself, and so then you get into a different kind of action, right? Not the actions of but just like more of a present action. What can I do today? What can I do today? The little baby steps. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right?
Yeah.
So it's that's not, to me anyway, the old masculine energy coming out of the corporate world. And I know you've been in the educational institutions. It's got to be the same atmosphere.
Yeah.
That's more of a, that's more of a I get the feminine frequency. What are you looking out there for? The baby's being brewed right here. You know what I mean? What can you do right now in this present moment?
See,
Something
I
like
think
that.
as well, and I see this, is there seems to be a downer on the left logical linear brain. We need both of these components,
Yeah.
because my feeling is that the right brain is associated with the feminine. It's the wave of the wave particle duality. And I think what happens is it's the wave that informs the masculine of what to do next, you see. So so there's like almost like an analog digital conversion thing that goes on. And when the male goes out and does what he needs to do, he then feeds back to the feminine. So there we have that infinity symbol that's always going on. And I got this clearly today, Joe. It's a bit like there's only one wave, Joe. There's only one unified wave, right? He said, do you remember when you had those old gramophone records? And I know you're old enough to remember that. When you took the stylus, there was only one groove, but where you put the stylus depended on which music played. Well, that's exactly how consciousness works, right? Consciousness works depending on where you put the stylus on the wave itself. And, and I thought that was fascinating because in free will choice, you decide where you want to put the stylus, you see.
Yeah.
And as you get a step back, you can then reflect on, well, I like that part there. I can go, do you see what I'm trying to say? So it's almost like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, Todd, to be honest.
No, I got you. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, yeah. And again, these discussions, I still believe, are the highest transmissions we can get versus, all that multidimensional stuff. But, like I said before, I mean, I'm sitting here participating for the, whatever, 2 or 3 years, with these shows, and these discussions are different. There's a difference now.
Yeah.
It's more of like talking, not, there was, and understandably so, here's my story, was maybe the early shows. Here's my story. Here's what I can do. I can download this and give it to you. I can heal you. I can do, da, da, da. And then it starts to be like, here's what's happening, man. What happened on the 22222, a couple days ago, and all the headaches people are in, and it gets really real. And the other part of this vortex, okay, if you will, it's like, I don't know, but let me tell you let me tell you about my experience, right? You tell me about your experience, and all that stuff starts falling away. It's just, like I said, it's like an untrodden path. Like it's not even like a fork in the road. It's just this path, and it's like white sand, and it's like no one's ever stepped on it. And you're like, we're dealing with the universe here, and it's paradoxical teachings. How do we know we're not going to take a step and go right into quicksand or go into some kind of, channel into another dimension or your parallel universe? But it's like, we know it's the abyss thing. It's that darkness you're talking about. It's like we're going. We're here. We've come this far. We're going. We've done this stuff over and over and over again, and I guess, like I said yesterday on that one show, we had this conversation, but really, what are we talking about? Like if there's anybody present that's afraid of death, we got work to do. Because to really embody all of this stuff is, we really got to believe, not to like force anyone to believe, but like, if you don't believe that you're eternal, I mean, I think this is the benefit of the code we received, as in the form of past life memories and future life progressions and all that other stuff, is to just tell us, hey, this is who you are,
I think also, Todd, there's a difference between believing and knowing. I think that we get to sink deeper. Well, this is my feeling. You get to sink deep enough where you go beyond beliefs, and it becomes knowledge. Then it becomes wisdom. It's a completely different thing, because beliefs, there's always an element of doubt in a belief.
Yeah.
And when I look at the beliefs I held as a child, I don't hold those, a lot of them now. But when you've actually experienced something and you embody it, then you don't believe it anymore. You just know, And I think a belief is knowledge of something.
Yeah.
But I think wisdom is knowledge. It's the knowingness,
Oh, no, I agree. And I know the word's not belief. The word is it's knowing, I guess, is close to, but I guess what I'm saying is like the placebo effect. There's something in our makeup that when we believe, unencumbered, uninhibited, we just believe, everything clicks. And everybody's experienced that. In our lives from time to time. But I guess what I'm saying is on a full-time scale, that it's just known. Like we don't even have to discuss it. We don't even have to talk about death or all the different faces of that frequency of that's fear-based programming. We don't even have to talk about it. We're talking as two eternal beings that are woke up, or two or more that are woke up and that understand that, hey, I'm a multidimensional. Really, this isn't cliche. Now, what are we going to do with this? This is the fun part. And this whole thing about not knowing, I think, is a big key.
We are the immortals, Todd. I feel that we are the immortals, right?
Mm.
We've got this multi-potentiality that we're just remembering how clever and how good we are and skilled we are, and that full spectrum human being coming back online. Now,
Yeah.
as you say, what are we going to do with it? And
Yeah, what
somebody
are we
was
gonna do with
saying,
it?
I listen to people and say, all the being of service, it's just to be and all this sort of business. But there's a part of me now that feels that with these abilities, they've got to be used in the service of the planet and others and stuff
Yeah.
like that, So I'm still working on,
Yeah, me
trying to.
too. Me
I
too.
don't know, mate. And in myself, I feel I've never felt so strong, never felt so forthright, never felt as though there's a purpose in my life, you know. Um, but I do know that I was gifted 28 years ago with this. Do it this way, Joe. Wake up
Mm.
with the blank sheet every single day.
Yeah,
Throw
I like
your
that.
whole heart and soul into it, right?
I like
Do the
that.
best you can and what you really feel. And then when you go to bed, wake up the next day with a new blank sheet as though nothing happened yesterday and just do the
Yeah.
same again based upon how you feel you're being moved from deep within rather than what your tricky head's telling you what to do.
Yeah. Somebody that was on the shows last week said that. The get up every day, you make a not a plan, but you just like, this is what I want to do. What can I do today? This is what I want to do. And then you do everything you can do and you go to bed, you wake up and you make a new one, you know? And that's that's what I'm saying. Like it's the not knowing that seems to be like, I don't understand it, but that seems to be the key. Like I don't know, but this is what I know, and this is what I've experienced, and this is the trajectory that I'm feeling I need to go with, or whatever the case is, or let's talk or whatever. But it's like the cliches are gone, like
Yeah.
the little adages are gone. What you resist will persist. I mean, yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
we're we're in some type of different. You can call it quantum or whatever, but it's some type of something that's different. But it is familiar. It is really what the breath goes out, the breath comes in, right? And it's so we're attuned to it. And but like you said, okay, so what are we going to do with it? And I'll let you run with that one more time because I got a show in 40 minutes and I'm going to eat something. But so, like, what do we do with it? What are we going to do with it now? What are we going to do now? Oh, are you frozen or is it me? Who's frozen? Uh, did you guys hear the weird noise coming out of his voice a few times? Yeah, he's frozen. Well, that's okay. He's gone. He's a goner. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, he's back. Can I hear you? Unmute.
We know, haven't we?
I can hear you now. Okay.
Must
So
be time to go, mate. We've been going on for a bit, haven't we?
yeah, I was just telling you that. I didn't know you were frozen. so okay. Oh yeah, I got to tell you something. Oh yeah, they did hear it. A few times, 4 or 5 times, you were talking, and it turned into like Darth Vader on steroids. And I was wondering if anybody else could hear it, and Zahara said she could. So okay, so we'll end with, well, let's end like this. Okay, let me tell everybody first of all that zero. I'm looking at Zahara, but Vera Ingeborg is going to be on in 38 minutes and give us an update. Her and Augusti are doing it. They're detaching from everything and doing it, and they're in Colorado now, so that ought to be interesting. And And then I think the other thing is we can go out like this, like, okay, so you're going to have a surprise guest on your show on Saturday.
Yeah.
What are y'all going to talk about?
Well, we're going to talk about. It's a big surprise. It's taken me a long time to find this person. She does. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. She. Anyway, it's a surprise guest. We're going to be talking about quantum leaping because
Mm,
many people talk about it, but
mm.
I'm going to give what and ask my surprise guest, a Nobel laureate physicist, actually, to explain what's actually meant by all these different phases of development consciousness wise and how to attach it to all the physical dimensions. So it should be interesting. It
That
should
sounds
be a
pretty
laugh.
deep.
No, it'll be fine because I mean, this person is very, very good at this. I'll call her the sacred feminine because she's got all the wisdom and all the knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. And also, it should be, I always intend, you see, this is me. My intention was we were going to have a real laugh and a joke tonight. And yet we've hit, in a sort of light-hearted way, we've hit
Hmm.
some of the deepest things in the universe. And I
Yeah.
think, as you say, that's the way it works because just this chatting without any sort of forward planning, I
Yeah.
think that's the way that helps other people to identify and get more honest at depth. Because what I've noticed, Todd, and I will shut up now, is our conversations, not just ours, but everybody's, they've got more depth and weight to
Hmm.
them than they
Yeah.
ever had.
Yeah. I think people becoming, or we're aligning with the frequency of being direct and authentic, and we can only resist so much, and we know that everything we're resisting is getting louder and louder. So I look forward to the next time you're on this show, and we can discuss, can you achieve Helioscamus single-handedly? And
Yeah.
we will
Some
be glad.
some of
And
you,
and I
some of
and I
you have
know,
practiced
and
it.
I yeah, and I know that you'll be able to give us a total recall of personal experiences of embodying Helioscamus single-handedly, and I guess I'll have to admit it as well.
I'll have to get some practice in the meantime. Right, I'm
Yeah,
going now on that
I would
note.
say you're a master. You're a man. I'll
Yeah.
see you later.
All
All right.
right, mate. Thanks very much.
All right. Bye bye.
Toodaloo. Bye bye.